I was on here earlier this week.
Hmm.
I am unsure of my belief anymore.
Okay, sure.
Okay, because I'm at the point where I've looked into history. There's no historical evidence of the resurrection, only the him being
Crucif
crucified.
exactly. I
Yeah.
agree.
Now, the only place where I'm hung up, and this is what I wanted your opinion on, is it the Sanhedrin, they didn't really focus too much on like small religious like sections when it came to their record keeping. And then there's the argument that they lost documentation. Is there any argument that that is falsifiable? Like there could be missing history when it comes to that?
Well, here's the thing. Okay, so it's interesting because the Talmud documents and mentions Jesus a number of times. Some of them explicit and some of them not so explicit. But there's a number of volumes that have been written on this particular subject. It seems to me that they really didn't like Jesus, which is why
Right.
they kind of make a lot of sideways remarks about him, and they even change his name. And in fact, Bert, if Bert's still around, can add to this conversation. They changed his name from Yeshua to Yeshu, which is kind of an
Yeah.
insult to his name. But listen to what it says in Sanhedrin 43a. I'll see if I can make the text big enough. Hold on a second. So it talks about what they did to Jesus. It says, on Passover Eve, they hung the corpse of Jesus the Nazarene after they killed him by the way of stoning. And a crier went out before him for 40 days, publicly proclaiming Jesus the Nazarene is going out to be stoned because he practiced sorcery, incited people to idol worship, and led the Jewish people astray. Anyone who knows of a reason to acquit him should come forward and teach it on his behalf. And the court did not find a reason to acquit him, and so they stoned him and hung his corpse over Passover Eve. And there's other sections in the Talmud too where it talks about Mary and the brother of Jesus and John the Baptist. So the Talmudic writers were writing about this time period, and like they were pretty good at like keeping the records, like the important records. So here's what I would
Right.
expect: if they were sending people out to round up the Christians, I would expect that there was at least one record of them giving papers to somebody, anybody, to go out and round up Christians. But I don't find it. I've never seen it. I've never seen a
Yeah.
single instance where the Sanhedrin gave permission to somebody to go round up Christians.
Right. Right. Specifically too though, what I would want to know was specifically about the resurrection, because that's what Christianity lies on. The
Right.
whole thing is based off the resurrection, and we have no historical evidence of that. And if there was a people to record that with the Jewish practice and how good they were at record keeping, surely they would have had some kind of record of that if that was a true claim,
Right.
right?
And remember what the Bible says about the resurrection. All the men of Galilee watched him ascend into the clouds. So if all these Galilean men are watching a human being resurrect into the clouds, many hundreds of people should have seen it. And if
Right.
somebody like ascends into the clouds, they don't just, oh, gee golly, I forgot to tell somebody about it. That's crazy. And then in Matthew it says that like the tombs in Jerusalem broke open and like hundreds of dead bodies came to life and were wandering about. Like we've got all these bombastic claims, but for some reason like they just didn't write about it. That's insane. We've got
Yeah.
hundreds of witnesses from the time period that write about stuff happening in that time period. The fact that none of them mentioned it is really strange. It sounds more like fiction.
Right. Right. Because they recorded the him being crucified, but they wouldn't do the resurrection. But from a Christian standpoint, wouldn't it be a disadvantage to cite Matthew, Luke, John, and Mark, because those weren't written until like 90 AD? So those are actually way after when Jesus was crucified and all those events took place. Whereas in Paul, he's the only one that had letters even remotely close, right?
Right.
First Corinthians, I think, was 50 AD, but that would have to make Paul a valid a valid testament. Is
Right.
there any argument that Paul could have been valid?
I think to be fair, I think Paul was a real person. I don't believe what the Bible says about him is true, but I think he's a real person. Same thing with Jesus. I think Jesus is a real person. I don't think what the Bible says about Jesus is true. Same reason, like, I believe that Julius Caesar was a real person. I don't believe that he was deified and ascended into heaven like it said in the Roman histories. Emperor Vespasian was real. I don't believe that he healed a blind man by spitting in his eyes and healed a guy with a lame leg. So like I believe these people are real, but like if you don't accept the mythological claims about Vespasian or Julius Caesar or any of these other people like Nero resurrecting from the dead, if you don't accept these claims from history about these other figures, why do we accept identical claims about somebody else in the
Right.
same time period?
Right. Well, yeah, I agree. That's kind of where I'm at and trying to figure this out.
Right.
As you can tell, it's very hard for me
I get it. It takes time. It took me
to
many
admit.
years.
But the only thing that I have found even remotely that a Christian could hang on to from Paul is the creed in
Yeah,
First Corinthians
15.
15.
Right.
Is there, like, could you give me your perspective of the creed and why that would be an argument not as a valid source?
Well, first of all, I believe that the early Christians did believe that Jesus resurrected. The question is, are there any evidence that he really did? Just like there were
Okay.
people that literally believed that Julius Caesar ascended into heaven. There were people that literally believed that Nero rose from the dead. Like there are people
Yeah.
that believe these things. So I have no problem agreeing that, yeah, there were early Christians that believed it. But to me,
Okay.
it's just as much a superstition as anything else.
So the creed would be, in your eyes, a superstition.
Yeah, and again, Paul wasn't even a witness to it, so how would he know?
Right, because he wasn't there, but wasn't he close to so wouldn't his claim be coming from Peter, right? Because he was close to Peter.
Well,
If I'm
he argued with Peter. I don't think he was very close with Peter, but he did meet with the disciples on two different occasions, if you believe the book of Acts, and some of Paul's letters. So, but did he actually agree with the apostles? Maybe. But the better question is whether or not there were eyewitnesses, because even Paul doesn't say that there were eyewitnesses of the resurrection,
right.
right? Like,
Okay.
I think
Well,
Paul
I
took it
guess
on
I'm at a
faith,
weird I guess I'm on a weird tip point now.
right? And let me preface this whole thing too. Is like
Yeah.
it also doesn't matter because he's still not the Messiah. Even if you believe that something crazy happened, like he rose from the dead, he still would not be the Jewish Messiah. He just wouldn't. He didn't
Yeah.
fulfill any of the prophecies, and everything that he says about the Old Testament is demonstrably wrong, which means what we know about him, like the words that came out of his mouth, probably aren't true. And so, like, if he predicted his second coming was going to be within the lifetime of his disciples, and he did on multiple occasions, if he couldn't even get that right, why would I believe that he resurrected from the dead?
Yeah, and that's the confusing part for me too, is because Matthew is written in 80 AD 80 to 90, which means that Matthew 24 was more than likely a recount of what happened
Right,
instead of like actually Jesus prophesying. I think Matthew was just
right.
writing about what he knew happened.
And we have no
Um,
reason to believe that Matthew wrote Matthew, by the way.
yeah, there's no proof of that.
There's
Yeah,
no proof of
no,
it. And the earliest documentation we have, the P1 manuscript, contains the beginning of the gospel, but not a name. So, what we would expect at the beginning of it, it would say like, kata mathon or some variant of Matthew's name in Greek. But we don't find that. The very beginning of the manuscript, let me see if I can make it so you can actually read the beginning of it. So the very beginning of, oh shit, I just moved my whole damn screen. Eventually I'm going to get it. There we go. The very beginning of the manuscript, and I'll blow it up and make it even bigger. It starts out, Biblio, Gune, the record of the genealogy of Jesus. So there's no name. Look where the name would be. There's just a divider between books, a little symbol. That's it.
dang.
We have no idea
Interesting.
who wrote this gospel.
Yeah. And they're all post-dated anyway, so it's not like valid by
Right.
any means.
And Matthew, whoever wrote the Gospel of Matthew, copied the conversion story of Matthew the tax collector from Mark without really changing it. He copied it from Mark, changed the name from Levi to Matthew, and called it a day. Why, if you're writing a gospel, why would you copy your own conversion story from somebody else without adding in the right details or differing details or telling it in first person or indicating somehow that you were the person? It's weird. It doesn't make sense.
Right. Last question I have for you, so someone else can come up and try to argue with you. So the genealogy, this was an area that I need to do more research on. I heard you touch on it a little bit about what Luke and Matthew said.
Mm-hmm.
Could you refresh or go over that? Why their genealogy of Jesus would not line up
Yeah.
with the lineage of David?
Yeah, so we got a couple problems. The first problem, if you go to the book of Matthew, is that the genealogy runs through a guy named Jeconiah, also known as Coniah. He also had a Babylonian throne name with what is it, Jehoiakim. But if you read Jeremiah 22 says something really interesting about Jeconiah. I'll put it on the screen. Concerning Jeconiah, his whole lineage is cursed. It says, this man Coniah, despised broken pot, a vessel no one wants. Why are he and his offspring hurled out and cast away into the land they do not know, referring to Babylon? O land, 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 hear the word of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord, record this man is childless, a man who shall not succeed in his days, for none of his offspring shall succeed in sitting on the throne of David and ruling again in Judah. So none of the lineage from Jeconiah is acceptable for sitting on the throne. They're all cursed.
And that's for Matthew, right? That would be
Matthew.
the argument towards Matthew because he goes through Jeconiah.
He goes through Jeconiah, and it ends on Joseph. And Joseph wasn't the actual father of Jesus. Joseph was just a stepfather. And then we get the same
Who was
thing.
that? Who was the father then they would claim as God?
But essentially, yeah.
Okay.
Right. So
and then Luke
chapter 3 runs through the wrong person as well. So if you go to Luke chapter 3, you'll find that the son of David that it goes through is Nathan and not actually Solomon. That's in Luke chapter 3:31. The son of Melech, son of Menah, son of Mattatha, son of Nathan, son of David. So the lineage was promised through the line of Solomon, according to Chronicles and the Book of Kings. It was never promised to go through the line of Nathan. In fact, when Solomon becomes king, God says, "I will establish your throne through your lineage forever." So the fact that they tie him to David using Nathan is silly. He has no right.
It doesn't match up.
But the problem with Luke as well is it still goes to Joseph. Both Matthew and Luke go to Joseph, and Joseph wasn't the father, and lineage was typically patrilineal. So, like, if your only claim to fame, being close to the king, is that you came through somebody who maybe was from the line of David and he adopted you, it's not a good start.
Got it. It just didn't match their culture, how they did it.
Right.
I gotcha. Awesome.
Right.
I appreciate your time. Thank you for your insight.
Sure. Cheers, Jacob. Have a good one, man.